to introduce the topic from the bank's perspective on why we are investing in this knowledge and learning program on AI in agriculture and why we consider this is important. He will give the institutional perspective and he will then chair the webinar. I will introduce the panelists after Julian finishes. And then what we are going to do, since people are leaving at different times and some people are leaving early, we will have Q&A happening after each presenter rather than at the end. So we have changed that format for this particular one because there are people going and coming back. The discussants are constant. They are the ones who will ensure that there is continuity between the presentation and what happens as a result of that. We would encourage all the participants on the online. Warm welcome to all of you from all parts. There are about 60 countries represented in the participants right now. Please start asking questions on the chat as soon as an idea comes to you when the presenter is speaking. Don't wait till the presenter finishes, because Ranveer will take the questions immediately after he finishes. Okay, so please keep on putting the questions in the chat, and our chat moderators, please keep on feeding the questions to me. As soon as you have a critical mass of questions, please select the ones which are and group them and send to me. Okay, without further ado, I now invite Julian Lampetti, Practice Manager of Global Engagement for Agriculture Food Global Practice, big champion of the digital agenda and co-author of What's Cooking, Digital Transformation of Food System, our flagship book, which came out some years back. Over to you, Julian.
Thanks, Parmesh, and great to be here. And just a big thank you to Ranveer, Abhi, Hila, Harsh, and Stuart for participating, and GA for participating in this event and getting us started on this very important topic. So let me start by giving you some context of why this is important. So we're living in a world today which has never had as many hungry people, yet we've never produced as much food as we produce. And we happen to be destroying the planet as we produce that food. Why do I say that? Because agriculture and food production accounts for 30% of greenhouse gas emissions, leading source of biodiversity loss, leading source of water pollution, and leading source of really bad diets for people. And so we need to rethink this space, and the bank has just launched a global challenge program around food and nutrition security. And that global challenge program really has two pillars. One is, how do we make sure people get fed? And that's really through social protection and humanitarian kind of interventions. And then how do we transform the way we produce our food? And AI can be super valuable in both of these areas. A lot of work has actually been done on the use of AI in early warning systems for food security. This was led by one of our former presidents, Jim Kim. And so we actually have a pretty good knowledge base on that. And the World Food Program has continued that work. And so this part of the work is really focused on the food system and how we change the way we produce the food that we consume. And the idea is pretty straightforward, is AI can help us link the 600 million farms to the 8 billion consumers in a better, more efficient way that also allows us to have a livable planet, as our president likes to say. My ask from everyone as you listen to our speakers is to think about what the role of an institution like the World Bank is here, and what are the public goods that we have, and then work backwards from the public goods in the AI space to what that means for public policy, which is a focus of our work. We are not about creating widgets for the private sector, but the private sector needs to be enabled to create widgets that serve people. And what are the public goods in that space? I'm really interested to hear how people think about that. The second point I want to make is not actually from the point of view of the World Bank, but from the point of view of someone who has a farm and who spends every weekend managing that farm. You know, the quality of the information and the reliability of that information is a huge question. I mean, I use ChatGPT to figure out everything from how to fix the fence to how to change the electrical system or pump the water on my farm and connect my solar system. But the amount of nonsense that I get by using AI to try to solve these problems is phenomenal, right? And so there's this huge quality issue in my mind, and really interested to hear from people on that. And then lastly, before I wrap up, I think we're thinking very seriously about writing our next flagship in agriculture and food on the use of AI in the sector to address some of these problems. So this is a great start to helping us think through a pitch for doing our next flagship on this topic. Thank you. And over to you, Parmesh.
Thank you very much, Julian, for setting the context. I think the situation is very ripe for innovation, new thinking, because the food is one area, agriculture food will be one area where this will be very important as we go forward. So to set the context, I have great pleasure in inviting Ranveer Chandra, who is the Managing Director for Research for Industry, Microsoft, and he also leads the food vertical within Microsoft. He has been a very important collaborator with us on many of the things which have been done. So please, Ranveer, share your perspective on what you think about this issue, and plus also what is Microsoft doing in this area. Over to you, Ranveer.
Great, thanks Parmesh and Julian for the introductions. I'll quickly turn on my videos to say hello, and then I'll turn off my video because I'm at the airport. So I'll just quickly get started. So just turn off my video. I don't think it's coming. Yeah, so today I'll talk about some of the work that we've been doing in this space on using AI to see how do you enable the adoption of data-driven food systems? How do you get more farmers to use data and AI? This is something that I personally have been working on for over 9 years. And previously I have given a talk in this series as well with Parmesh, and there's another one where I'll get deeper into generative AI and all the work we are doing on generative AI. Today, I'll just briefly touch on the work in that space. So to quickly set the stage, this is something we all know. The world needs more food, good food, that's nutritious food, grown in a sustainable way. That is, we need to grow 50% more food, and the amount of arable land is not increasing, the water levels are receding, then there's climate change. So how do we get to this sustainable food production? How do you sustainably feed the world? One of the ways in which we believe we can make this happen is that of a data and AI-driven agri-food system. That is, if every entity in the agriculture and food supply chain, all the way from input companies to equipment companies, farmers, retailers, food processors, if every entity started to use data and AI, it would significantly improve the efficiencies. It could drive new business models. These are some of the numbers that you're seeing here. But it doesn't just stop there. If every entity in the food supply chain starts to share the data with everyone else, this leads to even newer business models around sustainability, around nutrition, around track and trace. So this is the future that we envision that can be enabled with a data and AI-driven agri-food system. So just focusing on agriculture for a second, some of the things that you could do with data and AI-driven agriculture is you could map every farm in the world and overlay it with data. For example, what is the soil moisture level 6 inches below the surface throughout the farm? What's the soil nutrient level? If you could build maps like this, as we all know, it could enable techniques like precision agriculture or regenerative agriculture. You could apply inputs only where it is needed, chemicals only where it is needed, when it is needed. And these have been shown to improve yields if you can take care of plants better. It has been shown to reduce cost. You'd use less water, less chemicals. And for the same reasons, it also enables the adoption of sustainable agriculture practices. You're not wasting water. You're not putting in more chemicals than are needed. The thing is, precision and regenerative agriculture as a technique, precision agriculture in particular, was proposed back in the 80s. And as we all know, it hasn't really taken off since the last 40 years, more so for smallholder farmers worldwide. And in fact, if you look at this report, this is from the McKinsey report that came out last year. It says that the biggest reason these technologies haven't taken off is because of the cost of these existing solutions. The cost of technology is 47%. The ROI is not clear. This is even for the big farmers in the US. For the small farmers, actually, Stuart and I wrote a paper in the communications of the ACM where we dug deeper into this as to one of the biggest reasons of the limiting the adoption of digital agriculture is cost. So one part of cost comes from connectivity. That is, the farmer's house sometimes might have connectivity, but most of the farmlands don't have good internet connectivity. Once we talk about data-driven agriculture, AI-driven agriculture, one of the basic things is data from the farm. If we don't have good connectivity, then we are not going to be able to drive data-driven agriculture. The challenge is not just connecting the farm, it is about getting affordable connectivity in the farm. If you look at the GSMA reports, more than 90% of the world's population are in cellular coverage range. Yet, around 40% of the world's population don't have internet access. I think the latest numbers are 2.7 billion. And a lot of them are smallholder farmers. So we need to provide affordable internet access to get them connectivity so that we can get data, get them the insights as well. But the other part where AI actually plays a key role is to drive down the cost of some of these solutions as well. One of the challenges, like I previously mentioned, was suppose you have to build a map like this. What's the soil moisture level? What's the soil nutrient level in a farm? If you have to build an accurate map, if you talk to the experts, the soil scientists, they'll say, you know what, if you have to build an accurate map, you need to put a sensor every 10 meters because, even soil moisture varies from row to row. Even soil carbon varies a lot within the farm. But putting a sensor every 10 meters is expensive to deploy, to manage. It will come in the way of the farmer as the farmer does the day-to-day job. So the key question we asked was, can you build a farm like this using very few sensors, which is not like with very limited samples, very limited deployment, can you actually start generating insights for the farm? So one of the things we did was using, and this has been a key theme of when we've started using AI for agriculture, is around multimodal AI. That is, there's no single mode that's going to give you all the information of a farm. You need to combine different sources of information. So for example, to build a map, a heat map, what we do is we fly a drone, or if you don't have a drone, there's another thing in research where you can use a helium-filled balloon, or if not, you use satellite imagery. So you can see, for example, when Bill Gates covered our work, you can see a video of him actually walking with the balloon if you want to see what that looks like. But in a sense, you can get aerial imagery of a farm. Once you get an aerial imagery, we use AI to figure out what are the right places to put sensors or to take soil samples. Once you do that, wherever you've taken the soil samples or you have the ground truth and you have the aerial imagery, we use that to train a model. And then we use that trained model to predict these values in other parts of the farm. We do this for soil temperature, soil moisture, soil pH, soil carbon, soil nitrogen, and many other parameters as well. One of the other challenges which many of you might have as well, what about satellite imagery? Most of the satellite imagery is cloudy. If it is cloudy, you cannot see anything below the clouds. Everything you're seeing on the left part is what you typically see with satellite imagery. What we are able to do by combining RGB data with RF data, this is synthetic aperture radar data, is we are able to create these images on the right. On a daily basis, you can see what the farms look like when it has been irrigated, when emergence happened. And this technique, SpaceEye, actually used it used GANs. This was before generative AI has become hot. We did this in 2019, is when we had developed the algorithm. This was developed by one of my interns from MIT, where with SpaceEye, you can start generating images below the clouds for insights. In fact, when we've been looking at multimodal AI, we've actually combined data from different data streams. Here, what you're seeing is on the top left is what we do is spatiotemporal fusion. That is, to create some of these heat maps with Project SpaceEye. Actually, with spatiotemporal fusion, we are able to also to do things like prediction of microclimate over time as well. We are able to do Project SpaceEye to see through clouds. You can create heat maps, again, using AI techniques. On the bottom left, you're seeing the land cover labeling. You put in any image, and you can then see where are canals, where are farms, and so on. Carbon labeling is another one where and also on yield. These are all the different AI capabilities, and there are many, many more that we've actually built. Some of the new work we've done on AI is using soil carbon modeling. So, the question is, what is the amount of soil carbon in a farm? There are techniques such as DNDC or dissect that you can actually use to try to estimate what is the soil carbon. But these techniques are not very accurate. There are other startups that are saying, instead of simulations, we are going to use artificial intelligence techniques to build these models. Well, that's good, but it doesn't work in place.
Ranveer, we're having trouble
Saying
hearing
either
you.
simulations or AI, we are combining simulations. Oh, this.
Yeah, you just need to lean forward towards the mic, I think.
Yeah.
We can hear you
Okay.
when you're, I think, leaning towards the mic. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So what we've done is we've combined we've combined simulations with AI to do better soil carbon modeling. Like one of the new techniques is around causal machine learning we are using here to make these predictions. This is joint work with Northeastern University and University of Glasgow. So these are all different use cases of AI. We've combined a lot of this in what we call project farmvibes.ai, and we've released this in open source. In project farmvibes.ai, we provide hooks to bring in different types of geo data, sensor data, drone data. Then we have a way to pipelines to label or teach your models, after which you can use that to start generating insights. We've actually open sourced all of this. You can go to GitHub and look at project farmvibes.ai, and you'll see over 65 different workflows, AI workflows that we've open sourced that you can actually start playing with it to start using AI for the farms that you manage or the farmers that you work with. Just to show you what kind of insights you could generate. For example, we've deployed this in small farms from 0.5 acres to 9,000 acres. These are some of the use cases. This is a microclimate use case where once you put a sensor in the farm, we not only tell you what the sensor values are right now, but we predict this up to 5 days in advance. On the bottom left, you're seeing a testimonial by a farmer that we work with. There was a part of his farm that was infested with chemicals, infested with weeds. He wanted to spray chemicals in that part of the farm. The predicted temperature was 42 degrees. We predicted based on AI that it was going to be 31 degrees in those parts of the farm. It was actually 30 degrees. This is in centigrade, below freezing. It was good he didn't spray chemicals, otherwise he would have lost his crop. This is another use case for a farmer this is in upstate New York. The farmer wanted to know how his cows are doing once they are out in pasture. So we flew the drone, we transmitted the data over the white spaces, and within 30 minutes, we could start flagging things like from left to right, the grass is growing well, there is a water puddle that needs to be fixed before the next planting season. The cows are pooping well, which was also important information for the farmer. This is deep learning on cow poop. This is where the cows are. This is a stray cow that needs to be herded in. All of this within 30 minutes of flying the drone. This is a farm close to Microsoft campus in Redmond, where we show the farmer these beautiful pictures and overlay it with data. For example, the bottom left part of the farm is still moist, and the farmer should reapply lime before planting the seeds. This is after the farmer had applied lime. We are able to flag which parts of the farm are actually dark. That is, the dark parts of the farm are still acidic. The farmer needs to reapply lime here. This is another use case of a farm in upstate New York where we put multiple cameras. You can then see how the cows are moving, whether a cow is sick, and all of that. Essentially, it's a baby monitor for cows. We've been working with another farmer here in Eastern Washington for about 6 years. And then we asked him, how has data and AI helped him in his farming operations? What he said was he walked us through the different stages of the crop life cycle, all the way from planning to what to plant, to planting, actually doing variable rate seeding, to fertilizations. to post-planting, where to do variable rate herbicide applications, to after the crop has emerged, where do you spray under recommended temperatures and what wind speed? How do you monitor wildlife on fields, tracking season plant growth, to crop harvest, when to harvest, and we look at the grain storage utilization to post-harvest as well, like monitoring humidity, temperature, CO2, saying when should they sell using AI. And these are all the use cases for the farmer in the life cycle for the crop that he's planting. This is uh, like some of the use, some of his benefits. How much did he save? In his farm, he saved 38% on on the herbicide use in the farm. There was a particular part of the farm where he could actually double the yield based on the recommendations using data and AI. He also had a better market price that he could get using AI. He could use more of the grain storage. His seeding was optimized to reduce waste as well. So now I'll just get to, so that is traditional AI using multimodal AI, which gives significant benefits. But one of the blockers that we've had throughout is how do you take these insights to the growers? So, which is where the latest development around generative AI has been this big step jump, big disruption, which can help us drive some of these decision making to growers and some of the insights to growers. At Microsoft, we have been looking at all the different types of co-pilots for the different personas in agriculture, all the way from a farmer to an agronomist to a policymaker, a banker, supply chain ag retailer, ag data scientist, a food manufacturer, and the different ways in which they could use the natural language interface and use generative AI to actually benefit and get more insights. One of the things that we just built, and I'll be talking more about this in December when there is a separate talk just on generative AI. But essentially, what we did is on the left we've taken these components, which is for any farm. This is what previously I have given a talk on FarmBeats. Microsoft this year we announced FarmBeats now has a real product name. It's called Azure Data Manager for Agriculture, and for any farm, basically for any polygon, we store all the data for that polygon in a common data model. Once you do that, what we do is we use farmvibes.ai, the thing I just talked about, or other services such as Bayer Agri-powered services, which is building on top of Azure Data Manager for Agriculture, to create a farm context. So when a farmer asks a question, for example, what is the expected yield in my farm? We take the farm context through which we know when the farmer planted, what crop was planted, what farm management practice was done. We use that to augment the prompt. We combine that with agricultural knowledge. For example, this could be advisories that are given by CG institutes, by the government. We use that to enhance the prompt, which we then use to query Azure OpenAI. This is using a technique called RAG, retrieval augmented generation, to come up with a response for the grower. And then you are able to do a lot of very cool insights. For example, now a farmer on the top left here, you're saying the question you could ask is, please analyze the summary of health and vigor of my crops over the wheat growing season in 2022. We take that and we not only tell the answer, we create a plot as well. And then the farmer can ask a question, what does it mean? Should I be doing anything? And then based on all of this information, it is able to come back with a response. Not only text, we can do voice as well. Here, we also have other questions. For example, you can ask questions about what products have they applied in this particular field? How is the health of the crops in field? This is a set of questions that was given by a smallholder farmer here I work with close to Microsoft campus. He gave us 25 questions, and for 20 of the 25 questions, he gave us a 5 out of 5 for the Copilot, the AI 5 out of 5, not us, based on what the responses from the AI. The others were a 3 or a 4. Which is where we know this is just using public data. We're just taking public data sets from advisories or from Washington State, from actually all the 50 states in the US, from Embrapa in Brazil, and from India. And we use that to build this Copilot. You can also ask budget questions for the farm as well. One of the other things we decided to test was, can GPT-4 pass agriculture exams? So we used the Copilot to answer, these are exam questions, for US, Brazil, and India. For the US, we asked the question whether it can pass a certified crop advisor exam. This is an exam that anyone in the US needs to pass to become a certified agronomist. What we found is that GPT-4 can get 93% grades, which is way, way, way above pass grades for this exam. In Embrapa, which was more long form questions, GPT-4 with all the techniques with RAG, we could get 84% grades in this. In India, we are able to get 79%. And for this agri exam, this is an exam at the universities. The people who hold the exam, they also publish the top 100 people and the grades that they got. As you can see, our GPT-4 with RAG and context can actually beat the number one rank holder in the exam. That said, GPT-4 makes mistakes as well. Like, for example, for this question, who was the advocate of Marthandam Rural Development Program? GPT-4 didn't know the answer, but because it was a question in the India exam, it came up with the best guess and said it was Mahatma Gandhi, although it was actually Spencer Hatch. So, but it's again with GPT, it's not just text GPT, it's the multimodal aspects that can really light up different scenarios. Like, for example, here, when you give it a question, it not only tells you what the problem is, it tells you why it thinks what the problem is, because underlying it, it's still a language model. Like, for example, here you can ask, what is the worm? I'm a cotton farmer in India. Is this worm harmful? It'll come up with the answer that this is a cotton bollworm. In this case, too, it's hardly visible. Yet, GPT-4 with the multimodal version can actually come up with very good answers. In this case, again, identifying cotton bollworm. In fact, there are a lot more things that we are doing on it, and I would love to walk you in more detail in a later talk. Like, this is a farm. I work with this other person at Microsoft. He has a farm in Karnataka. He saw these. The question was, I'm a farmer from Karnataka. I planted DADI chilies. It's super in low rainfall. It has been irrigated using sprinklers, and I'm seeing small holes in the leaves. What is wrong with my plant, and what is causing it? Initially, GPT-4, our model, came up with some answers which were very vague. But then you give it another picture, and then it starts getting it. It says, based on this additional picture, it appears your plant has bacterial leaf spot, and it says, how do you cure it? You give it another picture and it confirms, yes, this confirms the presence of bacterial leaf spot, as the leaves show signs of water roasted soaked spots and holes. And you not only stop that, you can take it to Bing. You could say, okay, now how do I control the bacterial leaf spot? And it comes back with a response, which is unbiased, that farmers can use to actually treat this particular crop. So this was just one of the use cases. I did a very whirlwind overview of what all we are doing in AI. But I'm really excited about the follow-ups and actually working with you all at Parmesh and team at the World Bank and people in the audience as well. If you have thoughts, ideas, suggestions, please shoot an email. I would love to talk. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Ranveer, and doing this at the airport. That shows your commitment to this topic. And I think on the regenerative AI, we'll definitely, you will come back and take one case and explain that in detail. And by the time, I think our teams would have also raised some issues, and we will share that with you at that stage. So the question, there are many questions, and I won't take, because they're too detailed questions, and you don't have the time to do that. What do you see as the role of the World Bank in this agenda now? When you look at it, and you're working in India, you're working in many other countries, what should we be investing in if we want to build this ecosystem around AI in agriculture? What's your advice to us?
Can I just add on a question, Ranveer?
Yeah.
So just building on what Parmesh said, have you guys looked at how to use AI to optimize the access to government programs? Right. So as a farmer, I have literally hundreds of choices about the different kinds of programs I can subscribe to, to growing more pollinators on my farm, to growing more cows. And, I imagine AI would actually be very good at helping me optimize that problem, depending on what my objective function looks like. Sorry, over to you.
Yeah. No, both these points are awesome. And, to start with, to answer Parmesh's question, I think the World Bank, if you could fund aggregation of more data sources, I think that would be a great start. And and maybe collaborating on a few key pilots, because I talked about all the good things about AI. There are things that we need to be careful about as well, including around responsible AI. That is, you want to make sure they are guardrails. It doesn't go off track and doesn't give incorrect answers. And we have been spending a lot of time doing that. And as we do it, we've done it for 3 countries right now, in the US, in Brazil, and in India. But this is going to be very geographic specific. So maybe even one is data, but the second is working together on a few pilots, POCs that we could do in, say, 2 or 3 countries. That could be a great start. That could then showcase what it would look like, especially for the emerging markets, for the smallholder farmers. And Julian, to your question, I completely agree that those are the kind of questions, those what if questions are the ones where it could shine. The part which we are essentially, what we need to do is create some of these simulations and workflows that people have built and integrate it into such a copilot. This is, again, going to be region specific as well. It's going to be domain specific. A lot of our work right now has been in the US, just because we have so much data here. And we've done some work in Brazil and India. But again, just like the previous question, would love to explore this further. And this space is moving so fast. And when I talked about some of the things was on large language models, in just the language models, and the other part was multimodal AI. Both of these, I think, combining these, we could start lighting up a lot of very, very compelling scenarios. But that said, I did want to put the aspect around responsible AI, around making sure that the AI is used in the right way with the right guardrails, that it gives the responses that we want it to give to the growers.
Thank you very much, Ranveer, and we'll let you go now. And
Yeah.
we hope that we'll see you again in this series back
Yeah,
again.
definitely.
And what we will do,
Yeah.
Ranveer, if it's okay with you, that we have recorded all the questions which have come on the chat. We'll toss it back to you.
Yeah.
And as a part of the proceedings, if you can send your considered responses onto those clustered questions, then that will enrich the dialogue. I just don't want people on the audience feel that we're not taking their questions. It's just that the format is such that we can't take all the questions. Questions are very rich, and really appreciate all the people who have asked questions today. Thanks a lot, Ranveer, and look forward
thank you.
to
And
working with you again. Now I would like to invite Abhay Parikh. Abhay Parikh is the agriculture lead at the World Economic Forum's Center for Fourth Industrial Revolution. And he's also heading the Artificial Intelligence for Agriculture Innovation project, which really brings a lot of this work at World Economic Forum together. Over to you, Abhay. Glad to have you here. Please, we are running a little bit behind time. So, and you have to also leave at a particular time, so that will help you finish in time. So over to you, Abhay.
Sure. So good morning, everyone, and good evening, everyone in South Asia. As Patish has shared, I lead the agriculture initiative called AI for AI. The initiative is largely based in India, but now, based on the success that we've received on the initiative, we are planning to scale it across different centers. So have you shared about the initiative? And that was great that Ranveer could set up this entire context about use cases, because I'm coming in more from the policy angle of it, on how we can actually scale AI in agriculture sector more from a public-private partnership perspective, and that's what the project is entirely about. So just a quick brief on what World Economic Forum is doing. We are Center for Fourth Industrial Revolution. We started working in India in around October 2018, early 19, working on largely 2 sets of approaches. One is 4IR technology governance, and secondly, sectoral, basically how AI and other emerging technologies in different sectors. So agriculture is one of the key initiatives we have been working for in India. Apart from healthcare, eGov, quality education, energy, climate tech is pretty now. So largely the focus that we have in all our initiatives is to see more from the policy perspective and the private partnerships. How can we scale these technologies at the last mile with everyone in a multi-state? So where are we coming from? Just a level context setting. Of course, we know the geopolitical and climatic situations are dynamic. At the same time, we need to have almost increase production by 70% by 2050 to feed the 9.1 billion population. So that's requires a good amount of transformation from where we stand to where we need to go in terms of the agriculture sector. But at the same time, GHG emissions from the sector are really high, and a big thing is that sector is driven by 600 million smallholder farmers. When we talk about India, almost 85% farmers are smallholders. So how do you ensure that if we are talking about the transformation, these farmers are also included, but they also gain access to the new technologies and services which may drive this transformation as we go forward. So that's what we are trying to work on. We believe agri-tech can create impact at 3 areas when we're talking about this transformation towards food security for almost 9.1 billion people as we move forward. One is, of course, inclusivity. Inclusivity can be defined in different manners, but for our project, we define it as inclusive access to formal finance. So women, smallholders have access to formal financing, insurance, and social security. Where are we again coming from? Indian perspective is almost 40 to 50% farmers still rely on informal sources, which is around 24 to 28% of interest rates to be paid on the agriculture finance they take, and access to social security is still not that high. The second impact pillar is sustainability. So how do we improve farm planning, the use of inputs, and reduce crop loss? So which is basically driving the efficiency in the entire agriculture production through advisories, access to required inputs, and again, as I said, reducing the usage of water or other inputs. Again, just to give you the perspective of India, almost 80% of the groundwater is used for agriculture purpose. So that's a huge amount of water depletion, underground water depletion, that can be actually reduced through use of tech like AI or IoT. And lastly, efficiency in the entire value chain post-harvest markets. Again, we are coming from the challenge that almost 40 to 50% perishable products like fruit and vegetables actually get lost in the entire value chain in absence of warehouses, poor logistics, poor handling, and storages. So these are the 3 impact areas where technology can actually drive transformation, and that's what we are aiming to work for. But there's a if I may say byproduct or an impact that comes out of this entire thing is building up local capacities and entrepreneurship. So whenever we are driving digital agriculture on the ground, our learning has been it can't be purely digital. It has to be digital. You need people on the ground to onboard farmers, make them aware, and drive their traction and active usage of the technology. And that's where the local capacities will be really helpful. So when we are talking about these technologies, the next question that we started answering are what are the impediments to scale these technologies? If they would have scaled, they would have scaled by now. So where are the issues in ecosystem? At least from Indian context, we identified 3 key issues. Primary being the access to relevant and updated data sets. So the data is available. The data is available with different organizations, institutions, and departments. Secondly, there is no clear view on what data is available, what is the quality, the vintage of that data, the history of that data. That clarity is still not there. And for I, as a startup or a private sector, if I talk about, would have to go on the ground, onboard farmers, take their data, take their consent, means cost. So that's a big impediment when we talk about scale up. The second big challenge that we identified is whenever we're talking to startups or a company, they see agri-tech as a point solution, but not in totality in terms of a value chain. Where we need to bring in agri-tech as a package of services, not as a point solution. So that's a big issue we have been seeing. That's why it was not able to transform the value chains as it could have till date. And lastly, the lack of domain expertise or resources. So India is home to almost 2,000 agri-tech startups now, but most of them are good at tech at times, but may not be good at agriculture as such. So, and secondly, startups do not have those resources like a test farm or an agriculture scientist to help them refine their solution and validate their solution before it goes to the market. So these are the 3 key areas where we identified that most of the tech would not be scaling on the ground. And then we started working on how can we address these issues. And that's where we came up with the entire initiative of AI for AI, which largely focuses on creating a digital agriculture infrastructure with governments, which basically aims to create an enabling environment or a highway for these agri-techs or new technologies to scale. So what is this infrastructure all about? So it's basically on two pillars. One, we call it agri-value chain transformation. So how do we bring in technology, as I said, as a package of practice or a package of services, integrated into a value chain, largely to transform it? And second is largely the agri-digital public infrastructure, uh, in which basically focuses on developing public infrastructure that can support private sector, develop customized and innovative agri-services. Governments are a key player in the entire project. So whatever we are doing, the anchor partner or the driving partner are the central government or the state governments. So right now we're working with Ministry of Agriculture, but at the same time we're working with government of Telangana, Uttar Pradesh government, and an institution called Maharashtra Women Economic Development Corporation, which work with almost 1 million self-help group women farmers who are organized at federation levels also, and they wanted to introduce agri-tech to these women farmers. So we're largely working with these kind of institutions. We just scaled it, our initiative also to with Saudi Arabia, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, around palm plantations. So what is agri-value chain transformation? So as I said, it's basically integrating agri-tech as a package in commodity value chain to address the specific challenges that are there in the value chain. So if you talk about a value chain, there may be multiple challenges, right? So what we had done is we created a library of 30 use cases, and then we were able to identify for each of the challenge which kind of agri-tech solution would create most of the impact or would can come in. And that's where we started coming up the idea of creating this as a package. Of course, Forum's role is more of a facilitator. So we ensure that there is a consortium of complementary agri-tech service providers who would come together and deliver these services. And finally, the government's role will be to provide policy, infrastructure, and administrative support. So that's how we're creating public-private partnership and trying to drive value chain transformation. Our biggest and the success project that we did was with Telangana, where the government of Telangana in India adopted this transformation pillar as Project Sagu Babu, which I think means agriculture for good in Telugu. And they were able to demonstrate great results, which I'll talk about in next few slides. But they did this project with chili farmers with 7,000 chili farmers in one district, just as a pilot, and now scaling it up. The second big pillar of our framework is basically agriculture digital public infrastructure. So we are talking about two key aspects of it. One is the platform, and the second is the policy. So platform is largely what we are calling as agriculture data exchange, which is, if you see, is a platform or a gateway between data providers and data consumers to they share their data across. This platform has been adopted again by government of Telangana, and they launched this platform as edX. And already I think 12 data sets are live on this platform, and I'll be able to share that link for everyone's reference to cross-check it. And they are now looking for partners to scale some of the use cases around access to finance, access to advisories, access to market advisories, and others. So this has been a key work that we had done around data management. And this is coupled with policy framework. So again, we understand, we can't have a data platform in vacuum of a policy framework around it. So Forum, along with its partners, we developed an agri-data management framework, which again has been adopted by the government of Telangana. This framework largely talks about roles and responsibilities of data fiduciary, data owner, the grievance redressal mechanism, different SOPs of sharing data, and it's a holistic document in itself. Even the government of India has referred it for their agri-stack project also. And this framework also talks about consent management while we take data from the farmers and then share it with private sector. So this is a large part of our work on data. And third, or a sub pillar of the DPI is agri-tech sandbox. So as I mentioned earlier, one of the impediments that we identified was lack of domain knowledge for startups. So what we have proposed, and it's almost at the advanced stages of creating agri-tech sandboxes with agriculture universities or other institutions of specific expertise like Indian Institute of Technologies, largely to help these new solutions test, improvise, and get validated. So what we are envisioning is all these universities would share their test farms, the resource of agriculture and soil scientists, and help these tech solutions from growing from where they exist to maybe to a more improvised version. For example, one of the solutions that we were working with in Telangana had an accuracy of 30 to 40% when they started working. But when they went through a process of this kind of sandbox or a validation process, they were actually able to take their accuracy to 70 to 80%. It's a soil testing platform. So we're building these kind of structures which can actually help all these startups and new technologies to gather and gain uh, you know support from government or government institutions. So I'll just touch upon the success story that I was talking about. We did this project. Government of Telangana called it Sagu Bagu. It was largely value chain transformation with 7,000 farmers, chili farmers in one district. And they were introduced to 4 technologies: crop advisories, AI-based quality testing, soil testing, and connecting them to market through a market connect platform. And by the end line, and it was a difference of difference that was measured with control and intervention group. The intervention group reported 18% increase in profits per acre due to a mix of advisories, quality testing, and market connect. But I think a big part that farmers reported was, of course, advisories and quality testing that helped them. Advisories more from the perspective of how they approach the entire process of production, and quality testing from the perspective of they were able to fetch better prices. They also reported that soil testing solutions helped them, and the reports helped them reduce their cost on fertilizers, more largely on pesticides. So based on these really exciting results, and this 18% basically turns into 61,000 rupees. It's almost, I think if I'm not wrong, almost $1,000, $900 or $800 per acre increase. So based on these results of pilot, basically Telangana government is now scaling the entire initiative to 100,000 farmers in 5 value chains in next 2 districts. The same model is being adopted by UP government and also at Maharashtra. So our aim is to scale this framework to at least 5 states, and of course open to work with like-minded organizations, including World Bank, if we can scale it to other countries, especially in South-South collaboration where similar challenges exist in the entire agricultural ecosystem. Thank you so much. I'll just stop here.
Thanks a lot, Abhay. Much appreciate giving the perspective of how you're working. WF with comment of Telangana. The questions which people are asking is that, can you give a little bit more information about how do you set up this open source data exchange? It's not being easy to do that. And what would be the 2-3 conditions which will make this open source data exchange work? What are the variables we should look at when we talk to government, when we are asking them to set that up?
Sure. So I can quickly run you through the process that we took. So I think it started now with us doing those consultations and identifying what are those critical data sets that private sector is looking for, and largely boiled down to 10 to 15 data that they all use in different permutation and combination to develop different AI solutions. And then next, the most tough part started where we started mapping those data sets against where they lie in different institutions. And that's where I think the political intent is really important, or the investigative intent is really important, because that's where Telangana government gave all the resources and intent and efforts to identify where these data sets lie. And ultimately we identified was almost 8 to 10 departments plus university. So that mapping, and then the second step was largely to reach out and understand what is the status of those data sets. Like, are they in digital shape or not? What is their what is the history of the data since when it is being collected? What is the quality of data? So all these steps were taken. It was almost 6 months to identify the final sets that are ready to go on the data platform. One of the critical aspects, of course, for us to have a good technology partner or a technical partner, and I think that's where Indian Institute of Science came really handy for us, and they partnered with Telangana government to develop the entire platform. We are still figuring out, to be very frank, the pricing model of it. Or I'm saying it's largely Telangana government, us and ISC, the pricing part of it or the sustainability part of it, and also the second angle of private sector would share its data and what are the incentives for them to share their data as of now. So I hope this answers the query, but I'll be happy to share a detailed paper on that. We have done that, and it can be a ready regular for anyone who take this approach. Ramesh, can't hear you. Parmesh, if you're speaking, I can't hear you.
I muted. I'm sorry.
We
So
need some AI guidance.
I need AI guidance, whether it's working. So Abhay, what I'm saying is that there are many other questions. We will send you a composite chat questions, and then if you can just briefly respond in a cluster to those questions so that we can take the issue. The question which people are asking again and again, what does data consent mean from farmers? Are we compensating farmers from data because they're going to provide a lot of data to this? Are they going to get some services in return? Because we are now talking about a data voucher concept, where for every data which people give, they have some voucher for some amount of service delivery which is given in lieu of data there. And there's a lot of concepts being tried. There is a whole question of, there's a whole network called algorithmic justice for smallholder farmers also, which is also trying to see that we can do the level playing field. So there are a lot of ethical questions on getting a lot of data and not giving things in return. So just a brief, how are you looking at that issue? And then I think we'll go to Hila after that.
So Parmesh, to start with, we've not started with the personal data sets. It's largely non-personal data sets that have been lying with the different institutions and departments. So imagine data sets around pest infestation, the soil health data, the market prices data of different mandis. So these kind of data sets have been onboarded on edX to start with. We understand the issue around consent and the ethical part of it. So as of now, it's largely non-personal, while the plan is to go towards consent, taking a consent from farmers, maybe through IVRs or an app, or through any other mode where people may go on the ground and tell them what is it all about, inform them, and then collect that consent on a app or something. But at the end of the day, of course, the idea is that these farmers then would receive different agri-tech services in exchange. So it's not that they are giving their data and it will just go in a data platform and they don't get any service out of it. So largely the idea is that that data would drive innovative services that will be at the end of the day delivered to these farmers, for which they have given a consent. But we have yet not reached that phase. We are still with non-personal data sets to start with, to see how the private sector is also responding and developing their services on it.
Thanks a lot, Abhay. Much appreciate your inputs, and we will again continue this dialogue with you and also discuss potentially how we can collaborate and build on what you started in Telangana. So I have great pleasure in now inviting Hila Cohen. Hila is the Chief of Staff and Head of Business Development at UN World Food Program Innovation Accelerator, and a good partner for us as we try to work forward. And they have done many challenges on AI in food, latest ones, which are very popular, and a lot of new ideas coming in all the time. Hila, over to you.
Thank you, everyone. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Well, thank you so much, Parmesh, for giving me the floor. And again, I want to send my gratitude to the colleagues at World Bank for giving us the floor today. And I really think you gathered a great group of speakers because we're all complementary. And before I address what we do in AI, I need to take you on a short journey before, and complementing also what Julian said in terms of hunger, because I think that will give us a context of our work and why we exist, and how AI is part of our innovation journey. And in the end, I'll also share an open opportunity, which also we're working with different colleagues from the World Bank and other international financial institutions. So before I start, and by the way, if my quality changes, please let me know and I will stop my video. Thanks so much. So as Julian mentioned, hunger is one of the biggest challenges on the planet. 1 in 10 people doesn't have enough calories that they intake on a daily basis, but also they don't have access to nutritious foods. Another element that we forget sometimes is that actually the people who grow our food are the poorest people on the planet. So actually, though their income is created from food, they don't always have access to healthy food. Now, today, just in terms of numbers, there's 783 million people hungry on this planet. And out of them, 345 million people face acute food insecurity. So it means a grave situation of lack of access to food. And another alarming statistic that I like to share is that that number is 200 million more than pre-COVID. So, and if we look at the drivers of hunger, WFP and other organizations see 4 key drivers. One is conflict, the other is the climate shocks, the next one is the pandemics, and the other element is the inflation. It is more expensive to grow food, it is more expensive to purchase food, it is more expensive to run anything in the supply chain linked to food, but also us as an agency that helps the poorest of the poor on the planet. It's more expensive for us to help them today. And that's why we also believe as a team, as part of the United Nations World Food Program, that innovation is very important. Now, I know that we have a very mixed background of people in the audience. So I think that's why it's also I wanted to give context, because I think it's lovely that we have people from startups, academia, other organizations. So I just wanted to also give context of who we are. We are part of the United Nations World Food Program. We're one of the first responders in emergencies. So if you see an earthquake somewhere, or a hurricane, or a typhoon, or a conflict somewhere, we're usually one of the first ones there on the ground to support. And also in the long term, after a country recuperates from a shock, we are there to work very closely with the government. And we're very proud to be the 2020 Nobel Peace Prize laureates. So now you say, okay, La, what is this all about? Why are you here? So I'm actually part of a team that is the WFP Innovation Accelerator. And imagine us as the corporate venture arm of the World Food Program. So our goal is to do 2 things. One is to see how do we bring innovation into the organization through startups and through our colleagues on the ground who see the problems on a daily basis. And on the other side is how do we see the future? So that's also another element that I will connect the dots in terms of our AI work. And we are based in Munich, so I'm right in Munich right now, but we are the global function for innovation for WFP, and we have multiple other innovation arms around the world based in locations such as Nairobi and Bogota. And in terms of what we do as an accelerator, we look for, if I'm looking mainly at the external type of innovation that we do, we look for startups that have solutions for problems for WFP. So you can go on our website, innovation.wfp.org/apply, or if you follow us on LinkedIn, WFP Innovation Accelerator, you can see ongoing opportunities for you as a startup to apply to our program. And so there's a selection process. So we're like I would say we're a startup program of a United Nations agency. And so what we do is the classical, I would say, accelerator program. We look for startups, and then we invite them to our innovation program that we run ourselves. We have the experts in our team. We also have the experts. If we need a logistics experts from WFP or nutrition expert from WFP, we bring that to the startup. A very unique value add that we also bring to the startup is that we connect you to a country operation of WFP. So it's not my opinion to decide if a startup is fit for our program. We actually need to check, is the startup solving a problem for a WFP operation on the ground? So when you go through a boot camp, if you get selected, you would probably work with a WFP innovation operation where there is a need for your solution. And the boot camps are usually 5 to 10 days, virtual, in person, it depends. And also there's a pitch event where the startup gets to be on stage, gets an audience of 200 people in person or more virtually. And they pitch their idea, 3 minutes, the classical startup pitch. And after that, the team can apply to get funding from us. Usually our ticket size is around $100,000. And then there's also the element of scaling. I saw that in the chat that's quite an active question. And we realize that for impact startups or for startups that operate in the field of ag tech, food tech, that is a challenge. So we actually have a scaling team that helps with that. We look mainly on SDG 2, but now we've also supported teams in other sustainable development goals as well. So this is a journey of the startup, as I mentioned, and I will give you two examples of startups that have been through our program and share their progress today with us. But it's just another visualization of my previous slide. And last year, just to understand, I mentioned we're based in Munich, but we are very global because WFP is a global organization. Last year, our innovations internal to WFP and startups and NGOs that we work with reached 37 million people in 88 countries around the world. So I've told you about how it is to be a startup in our team. So now I'll tell you also what it means to have a frontier team. So we have a team that looks at the future of innovation. So how does blockchain translate into the work of a humanitarian organization like ours? How does artificial intelligence translate into an organization like ours? So we have a specific team that looks at that. And we actually have in our organization people who are blockchain experts, AI experts, and their job is to help us connect the dots, understand the operations of WP, understand the technology, and make the connections and help us assess startups. This is actually, just wanted to share with you. You say, Hila, what is this car? So this is an actually motorized vehicle that already WP uses in very tough terrains. It's an amphibious vehicle that we use in South Sudan. This is already used in WFP. What we're helping them with our frontier team is to see the future and how would this be the first humanitarian self-driving truck. So this was actually came from an actual need that we saw in the field. And this is us looking into the future because the reality that a self-driving truck would need to face in where we operate, it's different than a self-driving truck that would operate in San Francisco just because of the infrastructure that exists for self-driving trucks. So that you'll hear more probably if you follow us. It's a story, that will take us investment of a number of years, but that's the type of mindset our frontier team has. So now I'll go into example because I think that's the most exciting part of my conversation today. So first of all, I wanted to show you one example of an iteration of artificial intelligence. And this is for disaster mapping. So Sky is a collaboration that we've done with Google, and it's an interesting model of how we take the knowledge of Google and its pioneering, let's say, knowledge in terms of AI developers sitting in Silicon Valley, helping us and us with knowing the problems and challenges that we have in the field. And what I'd like to show you is this example. So let's imagine that there is an earthquake somewhere. Let's take the most recent earthquake in Turkey. We have satellite imagery before the disaster, and there's satellite imagery after the disaster. So in the past, for WFP to assess the damage, comparing the satellite imagery of before and after the disaster, that would take us 48 hours. Sorry, that would take us 3 weeks to do because you had human eyes, a number of around 5 people using human eyes to assess very large maps, right? And now, taking all these data points, all this satellite imagery, we can do the same task, leveraging AI in 48 hours. What does this mean for WFP? It means that now we have informational about the damage much earlier, which means that we also know where is the location with the most damage. It tells us where to send our trucks if with food, but it also tells us what route the truck can take and not take. Because imagine if the driver doesn't have that information beforehand, they might drive to a certain area 2 hours to discover that the bridge is broken and then return. So this really has big, let's say, significant for us. Now, what I wanted to tell you about this is that this is open source. So if you Google right now Sky and WFP, you'll probably get to our GitHub page, and you can use this code in an open source manner. And this has been used by other organizations we know already. And that's why I'm very excited about this project, because this is public knowledge available to everyone on this call. Another element that we have using AI is Hunger Map Live. And again, this is a tool that gives you information, and it's for around 30 to 50 countries right now, and this will expand to more. And you can use different indicators and filters to get information on hunger around the world and its drivers. And this will also, if you have a startup, you can understand what needs, what are the problems, what are the realities, what are your assumptions that you have. This is giving you real-time data, and the system it gets updated on an ongoing basis. This is just one example from Benin. Again, I just wanted to show you how it looks. And this is, I took this print screen just a few days ago. So again, you can find different information that can help you in your decision making, regardless of the activity or which type of person is listening in today. Now I wanted to show you 2 use cases of startups that have been through our innovation program, and you might be the future startup in our program. So the first innovation is called Ignitia. And I think it addresses a topic that I saw in the chat and was discussed before. So we work a lot with smallholder farmers as well. And what this solution does is gives smallholder farmers, using simple phones, hyper precise weather data. So the weather data that the startup uses is very, very complex, and it's hyper localized. Yet the information that arrives to the smallholder farmer is actionable data that helps them make decisions. For example, is there going to be a rainstorm? If there's going to be that rainstorm earlier than expected, should the farmer, he or she, should they plant the seeds? Should they harvest earlier, etc.? So really trying to use AI to assess data, weather data, but to give practical farming guidance to the farmers. And another startup that's been through our program, this is Bhumitra. This is an Indian startup that started its operations in India, and we're now and they're in a number of countries. We're working with them right now in Kenya. And what they're doing is 2 elements. And I think it was mentioned by this, let's say, concept was also mentioned by Ranveer before me. What we're taking is Bhumitra can do soil assessment without taking the soil physically. They use, let's say, very complex mapping and AI capabilities to get information on the local soil. Based on that, they give advice to the farmers to enable more regenerative farming, which means regenerative farming refers to any type of farming where you make certain adjustments and not do the same type of farming all the time, because that is proven to, in the long term, not to be healthy for the soil and all the other of the farming process. So they give advice, actionable advice, to help the farmers to improve their farming practices based on soil data, and then that will create an increased income. In addition, due to the soil improvements, the startup enables the farmers to get carbon credits. Now, this is, let's say, now we are working with this in Kenya with an existing initiative that's called the Farm to Market Alliance, which is a conglomerate of different actors, the World Food Program, a number of other actors, private sector and public sectors, helping consortium of farmers. Another fun fact about Bhumitra, we're proud of that they're part of our portfolio, and also they've just been shortlisted as part of the Earthshot Prize. So, and our goal is, again, this is an example where we're helping startups that do AI work with WP on the ground to help the farmers that we help. Now, you might say, hey, how can I be part of this program? So I mentioned it before. You can apply, look for our ongoing applications that we have on our website if you go to innovation.wfp.org. And also right now, there's a very interesting challenge that we're doing together with a number of international institutions, including the Asian Development Bank, the Intra-American Development Bank, IFAD, the World Bank, and ourselves. And just so you know, the deadline just passed, but we've extended it for 3 more days. So if this is relevant for you, you have a startup that already has tractions and results, I do recommend you to look at this opportunity as well. So thank you so much, everyone, for giving me the floor, and I hope I've provided useful insights. Thanks so much.
Thanks a lot, Hila, to really present all the excitement which is around these ideas. And I think the cohort you have with Bhumitra and others, I think they are very interesting new ideas which are being developed on this area. So what I'll change the format a little bit. We are not now going for questions to Hila. I'll bring discussants now, and then we'll take aggregate set of questions towards the end so that we become more efficient in terms of doing it. So I'll go to Harsh first. You have only 5 minutes now instead of 7, please, because we are running short of time. And then we go to Stuart, and then we go to GI, and then we open it up again for others if you have any other questions, particularly the people who are sitting here. I'll give them at least one question. Otherwise, we are giving preference to the virtual guys at this stage. So we'll bring one question from here. And then I'll ask Julian to give his impressions about what he heard. And then we'll announce the next one. Over to you, Harsh.
Okay, I'll speak even faster than usual then. Again, my name is Harsh. I'm a global lead for disruptive technology in the environment unit, and work with Parmesh a lot to try and see how we can disrupt everything we're working on here. I think excellent set of presentations this morning, and really like to thank Ranveer, Abhay, and Hila for providing a lot of different ideas in terms of how AI could be used in agriculture. As we know, AI has become something that all of us seem to either know a little bit about or want to know much more about, and this is true of everybody, right? And everyone has a lot of confusion on what it can do, what it can't do, and so on, but they know it's already starting to get mainstream with anything from how to translate languages online or visually, or how to go in and fill data gaps or make sense of patterns and come up with ways of identifying animals in a camera trap, all the way to trying and using generative AI or new neural networks or deep learning, or in my case, Harsh deep learning models, for these kind of things. So I think it's something which is a growing field, which we all know bits and pieces of. And this is where it's probably something where we all need to improve our awareness of both how it's moving and the rapid level at which it's moving, and what's constraining it in different places, and what is it that we can do to help speed it up in places or be ready for its aftermath, both positive and negative in this area, right? But I think from the presentations, we really can now start to dream a bit more, to try and think about what we could do differently in maybe in the next 5 years or 10 years. As Julian said, in the bank, if you enter from this week onwards, there's usually a signboard that greets you in the MC entrance, which says our dream is a world free of poverty. And now they've added on a livable planet, right? And I don't think they are referring to Mars like Musk. But so what this would mean is that we need to start thinking in each of those terms on how AI could help, especially in agriculture. So on the poverty side, to try and see how to make this work for smallholder farmers. So not just the rich farmers of the world or the big folks doing agriculture, but the poorest smallholder farmer in northern Nigeria. How can we help her to get access to better climate data, better data to make almost precision agriculture on their little farm going to be a reality, so they can get all the information in the beginning. And probably in the beginning, it'll be about smart apps to try and get information, or to get extension services automated in a chatbot-like system and all that. So a lot of those we can start thinking about how to start deploying. And some of these eventually will become global frameworks in which you'll go in and do versions of this in different places and customize it locally for language and other things using AI and other tools. The other is on the livable planet side, to try and see how to make agriculture more sustainable, how to make it, to avoid all the problems that Julian listed earlier. How do you save the Amazon from all the people who want to deforest it to grow pasture and so on? And this is where maybe AI is part of the solution, maybe curated meats are part of the solution. There'll be a lot of new technologies. How do you do different ways of getting these different systems to work together in a more coordinated, multi-sectoral, spatial perspective, as we saw in Ranveer's presentation as well. So this is where I think a couple of quick things to put in context. I think one is that we probably need to think of AI as one of the sets of tools and ways of thinking in the larger disruptive technology toolkit that we all have. So we usually talk about disruptive technology in 3 buckets. One is how do you improve the data value chain, collecting data from Earth observation, from satellites, drones, heliborne surveys, all these things, aerial real surveys, and how do you, on from sensors on the ground or from people entering data and apps and those kind of things, how do you analyze them in new ways? And how do you then make them more accessible and used for decision support to go from data to information to knowledge to decision support for either real-time or planning type decisions? And a second bucket is on how do you do things differently on the hardware side? So making new things, robots that can do your tilling for you and all of these things, or automated vehicles, as we were just hearing from Hila, or things to do with new materials and new energy technologies, all that stuff. And the third is very important on the ag side is how do you reimagine stakeholder value chains? So how do you help stakeholders? It's less about technology, more about platforms. So how do you get people to a smallholder farmer in the middle of nowhere being able to trade on the global market, or being able to access all these services or discuss with each other in whatever language without these problems? And this is where AI has a role in each one of these big buckets, and to help us rethink this. So we really need to think of AI as something which is integrated with other technologies, and to see what that combination of technologies can help us disrupt. But also to think about these as not just positive impacts, because a lot of these will have positive impacts even on jobs, to create new kinds of jobs and all that stuff. But it'll also have a lot of impacts on old ways of doing things, and that will happen very soon, right? And so this is where everyone needs to have a plan B, and we as a bank need to also have a way of working with clients to try and see how do we help them with that plan B, to learn new skills or to adapt to this new world, or to benefit from a lot of the changes that are happening. And this is where last point for last minute is to say, what does this mean for the bank in terms of our work? Usually we talk about the 3 I's that we work on: information, institutions, and investments. So on the information side, what can we do on data? All the 3 speakers talked about data in a big way. So what's our role in this? So for example, one thing that, suggestion is that things like Earth observation, modeling tools, and all that, the people taking care of it, and it's getting better all the time. The bit that's really hurting for AI applications are in situ data, right? To try and say, look, at this point in time, the thing is on climate, at least you have WMO and others whose job it is to collect weather data from national agencies and make it slightly more accessible and so on. But it's nobody's job to collect water data on surface water, groundwater, soil moisture, or even crop yields, or any of these kind of things. And those are the things, if you set up a system working with a lot of the tech companies to set up cloud services to have in situ data uploaded in a way that makes it public domain, right? With whatever, in this case, you could make it a full public type system if it's paid for by public, and make it something that's then accessible to all the entrepreneurs to be able to develop new mousetraps to say, okay, I can tell you now that we have trained our model with this data, the rice that you're growing in that field, what the yield is, even for the smallest smallholder farmer, right? And this thing, being able to leverage all these. And the missing bit is the in situ data right now. So if you can find a way to get that together, could be across all the different practices that we work on, including on water quality and all kinds of other things as well. The second is on the institutional side, to improve awareness, because as I said, everybody is still struggling with this because it's a relatively new area for everybody. So, and it's both within the bank, with our clients, in the government, in private sector, in academia, and civil society. Everyone has a part of the picture in this thing. And so how do you help get improved awareness of the bigger elephant, in, rather than the bit that you tend to see? So this is where probably the bank has a big role to use a lot of our open learning campuses and other things and all that to spread the message, have more of these kinds of meetings and things to be able to figure out what everybody is doing, what's global good practice evolving to, what is it that could be replicated or scaled up tomorrow versus waiting for 20 years. Those kind of things we could try and do. And the third is on the investment side, to try and figure out what can be done in terms of pilots, or even on the institution side to engage people to do hackathons or share ideas in new ways, or be able to come up with new ways of being able to do pilots, or to have accelerators like Hila was just mentioning, and so on. So this is where we all probably have a role to try and then think about what is it that could be done from the public side, and what is it to the private side, that a place like the bank it's no longer the World Bank group, I guess. So the World Bank can help on these kind of things to be able to see what's missing and try to see if we can fit in and facilitate this process going ahead, while recognizing both what it can do and what it already probably will do, which we need to be more aware of and be prepared for. So back to you.
Thanks a lot, Harsh. And Stuart, we're running a little bit behind time, so I would like all the discussions to be briefer than what they would have been. Stuart, over to you. And I'm sure you have got up very early to join us, so I think you have been thinking about this issue for quite some time. And so please share your perspective, Stuart.
Thanks, Ranveer.
Stuart Collis from Gates Foundation. I'm sorry, I'm not introducing everyone properly
okay.
because of the rush. Yeah.
No problem. Yeah, I'm Stuart Collis. I'm a senior program officer at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and I work on our digital agriculture team on digital farmer services and looking at innovations across Africa and Asia that we invest in. And like all of us, I've been more recently focused on artificial intelligence for small scale producers. We started a grand challenge earlier this year, actually, on AI and specifically on generative AI. And I'll get to that in a moment. But, we had an enormous response in just a couple of weeks, 1,300 applications. We funded 50 innovators. It's currently the largest corpus of AI-focused innovators working to figure out how AI and specifically generative AI can benefit the poor. So, as Julian asked at the beginning, can AI help transform the way we produce our food? And, we hope the answer is yes. It's something we're working towards. Everyone's excited about AI. I'll show one brief, just one brief slide, Ranveer. Pamesh, just to illustrate the fact that, we really are at the peak of the hype cycle at the moment when it comes to generative AI. And I want to point out that when you look at the sort of cycle of AI on the Gartner hype cycle, there's many, many different types of AI. Ranveer talked about this. The other panelists spoke about this as well. There's almost sort of a couple of categories. One is traditional AI. It's all the things we know around decision trees and neural networks, and these things are built upon one another. What has really gotten the world excited right now is around generative AI specifically, because that seems to be a sort of fairly significant shift in the technology itself and what it can do. So this, traditional AI, generative AI. Yet on the right-hand side, I love this cartoon because it sort of demonstrates the way most people sort of view these AI models. It's like this magic black box in the middle that sort of connects your data to some outcome or some usage. And so just wanted to bring that up briefly because I sort of see that coming through in a lot of these discussions. Is getting sharper on how we define AI and what we actually mean. In one sense, generative AI, all it really does is it predicts the next word. That's fundamentally what generative, ChatGPT, Bard, that's what they do. Yet it comes across as sort of human intelligence because it reflects the way that we write about our world. It's based on the entire corpus of the internet. Having said that, the benefits and the opportunity here is in the underlying technology. So the transformer architecture that enabled ChatGPT to be so good is based on a couple of things. One is the enormous large corpus of data, and that was mentioned earlier, the importance of collaborating around data. The other is around the transformer technology itself. And so what if you could not just predict the next word, but predict the next gene to edit or predict the next day in a crop life cycle? There's a lot of opportunities for us to apply this technology in a multimodal way that Ranveer talked about. So, Julian also asked, what's the role of development organizations, the World Bank? We think about this from the philanthropy perspective, and given short on time, I'll just touch on these things. So one, I think it's been mentioned, is data corpus. If you think about the large language models, they've been, the keyword is large. They become really effective when they're large. If we think about what does that mean for agriculture, do we need what's called a data pile for agriculture, or a data corpus for agriculture? Do we need one for small scale producers? Do we need one by country? I think a lot of these questions need to be answered, and we need to validate and test and use these models in smallholder farmer environments to understand how they really work and what data is needed to drive them and make them effective. Abe mentioned this from a DPI and DPG perspective. We should put that lens on it as well. Do countries need to have their own corpus of certain data sets? Also think about, the sort of issues that we need to address. Ranveer talked about responsible AI. There's biases, there's, ethical issues, there's toxicity in the language, there's personal identification can be discovered through some of these models, and there's lack of access for smallholder farmers and risk of exclusion. Most of the large language models, or all of them, have been trained on English. What about all of the other languages in the world? So I think that sort of gets to part of our role, is ensuring that these models are well used, they're sort of used ethically, responsibly. I think the foundation models and the technology itself, there's so much investment happening in the big tech world. We have to think about how do we partner with those big tech companies moving so quickly that it's hard to keep up. Every week there's a new model. So how do we sort of work with those large language models, and how do we reduce these effects you talked about at the beginning, Julian, on hallucination and errors and issues with the data? And I think we've got to do that through validation and benchmarking, testing these solutions. And just lastly, just to reiterate on our role, I think it's around, social impact. The impact on jobs will be an issue. Trust in these systems is really going to be key. We're in an experimental phase right now. So a lot of things happening, but we have to be cautious about just releasing some of these solutions into the world without truly understanding their potential negative impacts. We ourselves are partnering with groups like CGIAR and CABI to build, data corpus. We'd love to partner with others that have data. This is going to become a big issue. We think models will be commoditized. Data is where the fuel that drives these models. So how do we work with Hugging Face and Microsoft and others to make sure we're designing these in an appropriate way? And fundamentally, how do we ensure that the poor benefit from AI are not excluded from this technology? There's huge opportunities, for 600 million farmers globally. How do we make sure that we can improve our food systems with AI and that those benefits are fully realized? So, really appreciate all the presentations today. Look forward to engaging with this team and this community going forward.
Thank you, Stuart. And Jia, you have the last word. We have already ran overshot, so I would request you to be brief. And please, over to you, Jia. Jia is a senior agriculture economist, a specialist on digital agriculture in the Africa team in the bank. Over to you, Jia.
And excuse my voice as I'm recovering from COVID. Yeah, thank you so much, and I'm conscious of the time. So, and then so many things have already been discussed, and then excellent points from Stuart and of course Harsh. So let me not repeat all those excellent points, because I really agree and deeply resonate with that. I just wanted to give like two so just a little back. So I started to work recently in Somalia, which is the harshest conditions of agriculture in even among African countries, right? So those who know me know that I am I'm one of the strong proponents of all about technology, innovation, and AI, ChatGPT, of course. And I was so fascinated by the Copilot models that Randeep from Microsoft shared. But really, I scratched my head thinking, like, how can this be applied to the context of Somalia, and especially smallholder farmers there and pastoralists? And I think a lot of the participants raised the same question, right? What does this mean for smallholder farmers? And also, what will be the business model of these tools? And will this actually, drive most of the smallholders out of the global agriculture and food system scene. And I feel that the role of the public sector and then especially international and financial institutions like ourselves should really look into the one, the data quality and quantity, because in this large language model, and I've actually discussed this with language model scientists, and one of the interesting thing that I learned is that with the emergence of ChatGPT in the history of internet, for the first time, there was a decline in the quantity of data, new data input in internet, because there is no more marketability of putting content on the traditional web browsers. As people more and more go to ChatGPT for information, there are less traffic on web browsers and less opportunities of generating income from advertisements on browsers. So people do not put contents. And what this means for the AI and then AI-driven sort of insights future is that what we have right now will really determine the quality of the insights that we will get. So then I think the public role should be in the AI age is that how do we then incentivize more creation of new information and putting up of this information on the internet to really continue feed the large language model like ChatGPT and all the other AI-enabled solutions that will then drive the future of food systems. And for that, we really need to think, and I really strongly recommend this webinar series on AI and envisioning the future of food systems with AI to delve into this theme of data quality, not only quality, but also ensuring quantity, right? So research and development, but with a very, very strong incentive structure thought through that would benefit also smallholder farmers. And related to that, I think one other aspect that would demand further scrutiny is that I really thought one of the participants, I think one of the last questions of one of the participants asking how the economies of scale of AI drive smallholder farmers out of business, like it did for dairy farmers in the US. And this is I think very pertinent question, given that a lot of the things that open AI and AI-based agriculture solutions produce or enable is not at the very, very smallholder level, but then it really requires you to have certain plots to make sense for you to invest in some of the tools, or even follow the advisories that are given by these solutions. So yeah, I'm not saying I have any solutions or I have some insight, but this is my ask for the webinar series team to entertain for the next series, because I think without answering these questions, the large language model like ChatGPT and then all its potentials, we are at the risk of losing the huge potential to really transform the food systems. And I'm eager to continue to engage in these stimulating discussions. And please invite me for your future series in this fantastic subject. And maybe we are really at the brink of transforming the agriculture, and this formation, the panelists and all these participants from around the world, and all these very relevant questions in the chat was really stimulating. We should really continue discussing this. And I hope the two aspects that I just discussed we would look at it with the further scrutiny and continue discussing on this. And thank you so much for inviting me. And then yeah, looking forward to continue engaging in this discussion.
Thank you,
so
Jia.
much.
In spite of not being well, I think you really made very good points and you attended the whole period. I realize when you're recovering from COVID, it's very difficult to participate, but really appreciate and we look forward to your ideas. Before I hand over to Julian for his final kind of remarks, I just need to announce that the next one is on computer vision applications. They're all the practitioners who have built very cool applications on. One is on the crop yield estimation, another one is on plant pest management. So there will be very state-of-the-art innovators working on that. There will be actual use cases presented. This will be on November 16th. And then the next one is on December 7th, which will be on generative AI. And we will really discuss this whole animal of generative. It's all like, jargons, and even for all of us who are in this business, it's all new. So we are in the process of learning and we will engage very effectively. I don't know where the jury is going to come out on this, on how we will engage, what we will engage, but this is an active process of learning. And I would like Julian to also respond. Does he think that because AI will come in, his farm will evaporate? Answer that question also, because that's what people are asking.
All right. Thank you, Parmesh, and thank you to all the speakers and all the discussants for a great session. And I hope you ask me to chair all the future sessions that this group does, because it's a great way for me to take the time to actually sit and listen and learn in a way that otherwise just doesn't happen for me. And like most people, I really never have an opportunity to read anything any longer because I'm just going from meeting to meeting. So really excited about this series and this opportunity. What I kept thinking about as I listened to this session is, we currently spend $700 billion a year at a global scale on agricultural subsidies. And most of that money goes to things that are actually destroying the planet, contributes to problems. We are probably spending at least that, if not more, on social protection schemes that are often very poorly targeted, not reaching the right people, and providing people with things often that they don't need, and they end up trading for things that are worth a lot less. And if you just think about the application of this kind of technology to those two problems, you realize that the money is already sitting on the table. We estimated to feed every single person up until 2030, and so to eliminate hunger just by feeding people enough calories that they're missing would cost you about $90 billion a year. Okay, and you're spending way more than that in the current system. And that to transform the food system is going to cost about $500 billion a year for the next 7 years. Again, it's less than the money that's currently being spent. And so, we do not need to go around and tell these governments, here, take big loans, spend more money. What we need to do is focus on how do you use these technologies to make the money you're spending deliver a lot more for every dollar you're putting out there. 35 cents of every dollar spent in agriculture actually reaches the farmer. It's a travesty. I can tell you, I have a farm, and if I'm only getting 35 cents, I could do a lot better if I were getting 80 cents or 90 cents. So I have only the vaguest of applications of AI on my farm. I think it's a huge opportunity. It is a huge investment. And I can tell you the reason I don't do more is it takes time and it takes money. And, I happen to have another job, actually 2 other jobs, but 3 if you count being a father. So it's just, it's not easy and it's not cheap, and it's not going to happen unless you really put in the energy and the capital to do it. So thank you very much for a great session, everyone. Over.
And just to let you know that you will get the recording, the chat, documented chat and responses, and the proceedings. All presentations will be available to everyone who registered, and we will circulate it more widely. Please watch for my LinkedIn post, and I'll post it there as well. Please follow me if you want to know what's happening. And I have enough followers, but I think you want to come in more, please follow, please do come in. Thanks a lot, and look forward to seeing you again. Thank you very much.
Thank you.